Estes e outros conteúdos estão disponíveis em www.beiratv.pt.
I came here this morning to present you this subject of research called Reaching Storytelling by Doodling with Memories. The general idea here is how to represent schematics based on information or in complex systems using drawing to better understand those elements. I will start by showing you some examples of master element of this kind of representation by drawing that are the schematics done by Norman McLaren. I don't know if you know this artist. Norman McLaren worked in Canada in the 60s and 70s, and he did a major work in research relating the sound with moving image. Norman McLaren was a crucial element in this association of drawing and use of drawing as a translation tool, because in his schematics he used the temporal analysis relating several elements, and the temporal element was not only a metrical element, was also a channel to convey emotions and to pass out the message. It was not only an objective message, was also a cryptic element related with the emotions felt in his work. So these schematics are crucial in understanding how schematics can work in understanding in a better perspective, in a better thought about the subject on complex systems. So we have these elements that are exploring the time not only as a metric element, but also as organization of structures, of thoughts that are after outputted on his work. So Norman McLaren worked his heart using those elements, and those elements were afterwards explored in his movies. We have here another example where the elements of time are rearranged to create a sequence of elements. And for example, in this video, can you put the video, please? Thanks.
Well, if a sound will make a pattern on film, a pattern on film will make a sound. You can even create your own sounds by drawing directly on the film. Norman McLaren, the motion picture artist, has been making some hand-drawn sounds, and now he's going to hear them for the first time, played on the moviola, a sort of miniature movie projector. It's not just guesswork. The sound of any of these patterns of lines can be calculated. The size controls the loudness. A row of small marks would sound like this. Larger marks, a louder sound. That's simple enough. Then there's the tone quality. It's controlled by the shape of the marks. This series of thin, straight lines gives a sharp, rather unpleasant sound. But these round dots are a bit smoother. The marks can be any shape you like. Now how about this? Using the brush, Norman tries a row of small triangles. These sharp, angular forms, what would they sound like? The distance the lines are apart controls pitch. With the lines far apart, a low-pitched note, a medium, and a high note.
Okay, so in this example you see that Norman McLaren used the technology available at the time, that he was using the moviola, and till the 90s till the democratic enlargement of the appliance in digital cinema. Till then, in the movie strip, you could record visually the sound. So the sound could be recorded visually in the film strip, as also the image could be. So Norman McLaren take chance using this casuality to explore this relation and this almost synesthetical relation between sound and image. So drawing can help transcoding information from different medias. Drawing can help, for example, reasoning rhythm through drawing, through the expression of drawing, through doodling. And using this element, you can help students to understand different mediums and different and strange environments. So when you have an expression, a related expression that is an individual expression made by the student, when he draws on paper, that information can be translated to segments, and those segments can be more can work like little blocks of Lego, and with those blocks, the student can relate with the field or the medium that he's trying to learn. Okay, so translating and transcoding information, it's a crucial element in understanding the rule of doodling as a symbolic operator. So drawing can be helpful in our days when we try to help people to understand and to learn new different things. Drawing can build the bridge. And why? Because it's a very expressive, very natural element and a very natural tool to use to translate information. But I'm only talking about drawing as an operator of schematics. I'm not talking about the drawing as element of representation of the visible world. Okay? It's like a map. So you can achieve several symbolic connections and then promoting and empowering the student interaction with different fields of knowledge, because the student is creating his own architecture of knowledge. Why? Because he's using the symbolic connection. A symbolic object doesn't control all the information, just the connection. It's a cryptic element, it's very emotional. But to promote that emotionality, you need to promote that transcoding tool and the transcoding task. So, but in this field comes a problem that is in our time, in our perspective of the world, and how we mixed several medias and how we work with the concept of network. How can we use the drawing as a translation tool? Because this is our world, a network of elements, and in those elements sometimes appears a casuality. Well, our world, the world that we are coming into, the digital world, it's very different from the physical world. And there are several authors that defend that idea. One is Jacques Vallée, a very known scientist that worked in the first networks implemented in the United States in the 60s and in the 70s. And the other, Carl Jung. Carl Jung defended that sometimes when we have excess of information in a limited space, we can have synchronicities, and we can have casualties. Jacques Vallée, in this first research with the network, as we in our days know as DARPANETs, created in the 70s, he and his colleagues understood that sometimes the network was promoting those casualties. And at that time, it was something that nobody could understood very well. Till now, Jacques Vallée says that he still doesn't understand doesn't understand how those casualties happen, and because that he crossed with the theory of Carl Jung about casualties and synchronicities. The problem is that our world is displayed in a very Descartes logic. All our science is based on bidimensional space, because since the times of Descartes, it was popularized the idea of representing and measuring motion in terms of distance from two axes intersecting at the right angles. So all our knowledge is based on a bidimensional surface where people draw equations, and with those equations we made this technology. Okay, so all representative equations are cluttered with letters like X, A, E, Z, and T. Why? Because everything that was the base and the support for our society to develop technology was made on this surface. The way that we organize information, it's always till the digital age, of course, was organized in X and Y. Our libraries are organized like that. But the problem comes when the digital age came. And in this kind of organization, all segments of information are cluttered in the system. They are not arranged in time or by location. They are organized, they are stacked up when they are coming to the system. They are stacked up, they have like little elements that can be referred to as a symbolic element when the system calls the function. So there is a very big confusion of data here. The problem is that this data is cluttered in a very limited space that we in our days call the web. So in physics, time and space are fundamental because of a cultural artifact, and that cultural artifact, it's a piece of paper. Okay. But space and time, when they derive their convenience from graphical considerations, they can be convenient notions for draw the progress of a car, but they are useless for locating information. And that it's a very crucial element to know when we are starting to try to represent our reality of information. Why? Because as several studies say, like for example the study performed by Sparrow in 2011, internet has become a primary form of external or transactive memory, where information is stored outside ourselves. So if you are going to buy a bag on Amazon, you can know in what place, in what segment is that bag. But if I ask you what kind of bag is it, you will have difficulty in explaining me what kind of product you want to buy. So this element is crucial in understanding how we represent things and how we represent not only things but schematics and access to information. So there are many kinds of representing maps, and some of those maps, as you see in this example, they remember more organic elements, new organic elements that are forming in this digital age. And they contrast when you ask, for example, for a student to make a sound translation to drawing. Or you see a map of a cryptical element like a myth or a legend. Or you have a more cryptic experience related with what the people see in their visionary dreams. So in here appears the question how to engage learners in transcodification processes, or else like converting data from different sources in our time. So It's like reasoning through doodling, creating a storytelling, a link for writing and talking. Because when you are promoting someone to transcode information, you are helping that person to better write, to better speak about the subject. So, in what way we can implement this element? Well, the reasoning through doodling, through drawing, can be a subject of a contextualization in a context. And that context can belong to another larger context. So when you relate the three elements, you can create a story. So when creating the story, you are creating a mnemonic marker that can help the student remember afterwards the information. So in some way, the storytelling can wrap around the precise information, the symbolic connections that the student will need to better understand and better explain and better insert in himself that idea and that information. So the doodling and the drawing is used as a connector and helps extracting metaphors from precise information, and the storytelling will wrap around all these channels and all these packaging that will do a more flexible and easiest way for the student to learn the subject of study. So this is like trying to empower motivation through these symbolic experiences. The best way and the cheapest way to do this, to apply this method, is using drawing in the classroom. Another interesting thing is that this process of reasoning can be related by a method of montage. When, and recalling again the sequence that I told you, the element task is related to a context. That context is a project, and that context of a project can be related with the vision. So, in this way, the student mentally is going to assemble all the elements, and with this way, he will perform a better way to assemble the information. In some way, the stimulus, the storytelling, works as a joining actions with the object's context, and that element can be linked through reasoning and reasoning through pictures, and can be related also with some contemporaneous methods of productivity. We all in this room, we are dependent of various methods of production, of understanding reality. All have schedules, all have timetables, all have the chaotic element of disorganization in our society. Elements like, or methods like personal productivity systems, like Get Things Done, they do what? They do the sequence of actions. They will contextualize a task inside a context, and that context in the larger context. So, in this way, we can envision that this method of transcoding information can relate different elements of perception and information perception, creating in the student the more convenient way to understand how the elements of an action can evolve through time. Where is the motivation, the support to understand that action, and finally the research concept where the student works and tries by himself to transcode the element to another kind of media. So it's like having a DNA chain where you can embrace together drawing, the flow created by the storytelling, and the reasoning created by the experience of interaction. Because when the student interact with the drawing, the student will interact with his own concept about the information that he's trying to learn. So, but how can we do this? Well, we could do and apply this using a storytelling context, where in some part of the system you have the learning materials, you have the reasoning through pictures, like you are presenting that challenge to the students, and then the testing and failing different models. What happens when the models fail to comply with the successful reasoning? What will happen in the context, in the larger context? And finally, the testing successful models and what happens when the models related with reasoning are successful, and those actions will create and affect the system in a positive way. So it's like creating a schematic and various levels of this learning module, where you in the first place have the first drawings, the first description without analysis based on memory, and afterwards you have a tutorial where you present the objectives and structures. And then to convey that tutorial and to pass in a more accessible way that perspective, you have to have several persons using different languages of representation and helping the student not to copy only one method of representation, but he or her has to understand that there are several ways to represent structures. And finally, the findings: improving equity over systems through drawing. Like in this model, we try to favor the structural understanding and not only the visual element. So, like creating a more engaging and energizing learning activity through this empowerment of drawing. Thanks.